Hello, this is Anies83, and today I have been to the cinema and I watched the following movie, Borderlands. Yes, I have all of the games, although only 2 of them on disc, but I have also the pre-sequel. I even bought on Xbox One. I bought the Pandora's box edition, so I have all of the games there as well. I get all digital, so I can't show it to you, but believe me, I have it. And also recently, I bought Tiny Tina's Wonderland. So I am. I'm not a huge fan of Borderlands, but I would at least say that I have played the games enough to know what is all about. Short of it, I would say I am not a fan of the first game. I have actually been outspoken about it in an earlier video. I actually made a games I hate video about it. The original story campaign of Borderlands is awful, and if I hadn't forced myself to try to play the DLCs on this disc, because I bought the Game of the Year edition, I probably wouldn't have bothered playing any other Borderlands games. And I would say that I am a fan of Borderlands 2. I think that's a far superior game than the first one. Actually, you could make a video about games transferred into movies. That's an interesting subject in itself, right? There have been relatively good adaptations and there have been relatively bad adaptations. It is an interesting subject. We could talk for hours on that subject alone. And feel free to share ideas and views on the subject in general down there on the comment section. But suffice to say, I think it's unhealthy to be too Puritan about the game. Like the movie has to be completely the same. But of course, I do understand that if the movie is not similar to the game at all, you start to question, why was the movie made anyway? Why couldn't I just call it something else? Again, now I'm not going to talk in depth about this issue, but I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil, and so I've seen all the Resident Evil movies. I even talked about some of them on my channel if you want to watch them. But I would say that the first Resident Evil movie was hated by many, but I enjoyed that one. The very first with Mila Jovovich, I think it's a good enough movie. I think the first one is a good enough movie, and I think okay is good enough. So let's go to Borderlands then. I think it was an okay movie, and I would actually recommend people watching it because okay right now is great. We'll get back to that. But it's gotten a lot of hate. Now, I would have watched this anyway. There are many reasons you go to the cinema to watch a movie, and I watched this movie for 2 reasons. One, I actually enjoyed the Borderlands games somewhat, and I had friends who wanted to watch it as well. So it was a social gathering. Everything is better in co-op, so we saw it together. And we knew that the movie has already gotten a lot of hate. And we knew that going in. I looked at Rotten Tomato. The audience score was about 50%, were still rotten. And the reviewers, those professional reviewers, gave it a 5% or something, really rotten. So we watched the movie with an open mind, but with our expectations really low. And I think that's a healthy thing. You go into a movie is to go in with a low expectation, but not too low, not negatively charged, but it is what it is. And I had seen the trailer and I even shrugged at it, and not only shrugged, I kind of I reacted smugly, this looks so cheap, for instance. I thought this movie looks cheap. In the trailer, I felt it looked cheap, but it still had these moments in the movie where I felt that, this looks kind of cheap. But I think it's the thing with too much computer animation is that they just put lots of it in the movies nowadays, and they will look cheap because of that. They take more is more, but less is more. And there was at points in the movie that the CG didn't look good at all, which again could be a video in itself. There are a lot of examples of bad CGI. Now people that have seen it online, people compare all the new CGI, and you see that new CGI is worse than the old ones. It's really interesting. Moving on, the point is it did look cheap also in the movie, but not so much as I would have expected looking at the trailer. The next part, let's go through the casting, because lots of people reacted to the casting. Cate Blanchett was said being too old for this movie, and I kind of agreed on that in the beginning of the movie, and then they actually made some jokes about it. Let's say we start with spoilers now. In the very beginning, when you introduce Lilith, they make it like, she says, "I'm too old for this," and then some other character makes some points that she is also old. It gets in your face. You get ahead of the curve, you know? You bring the issue to the forefront. Yeah, we know it. Bleep you. Fine. Cate Blanchett is a really good actress, and so she carried the movie somewhat. And it didn't take too long until you kind of accepted that Lilith was Cate Blanchett, even though she's 40 years older than she ought to be or something like that. Again, this is an issue we could debate. I don't know. But I accepted it. So she was fine. And then you have Kevin Hart as Roland. I'm not very familiar with this actor. I know he's been around. I know he's been in other movies. But I kind of guess. Let me just have a look at his IMDb page. But I would guess that most of the movies he's been in are movies I tend not to watch, don't care about. But I'll have a look at his IMDb page. It is clear that I have no idea who this guy is. But anyway, how is he in this movie? He was not all that great, but okay, he was okay. The issue I had, I would say, is that Roland in the games, I think, was the quiet type, the stoic type, whereas this Kevin Hart character, he channeled some, how should I put it, without sounding too politically incorrect. There's an archetype, black characters in the school of Will Smith sometimes. He was more loudmouth and in your face than I would think the Roland in the games was. The Roland in the games, I think, was more stoic, whereas in the movies he was more in your face. Let's have a look at the other ones. Jamie Lee Curtis. People said she was too old to play Tannis, but you know, I think Tannis always to me has been an old character. She does look younger in the games, I give you that, but to me she's been like the old naggy woman archetype. And then there's Tiny Tina, Ariana Greenblatt as Tiny Tina. I think that's the worst one. I'll get back to it when it comes to the more broader themes or broader feel of the movie, but I would say that she is the best example of what I took notice of in the movie. Was a lot of energy in it. The game world is more manic, more extreme, whereas this one was more low energy. And Tiny Tina was not manic at all. If you haven't played the games, Tiny Tina in the games are more manic, and she talks differently too. Have her talk in the same lingo as in the games because it could be not politically correct. But I took notice of that, and she wasn't manic, you know, really intense, like really high energy. She was more calm. Krieg, a character I don't know that much about. I played the DLC in the Borderlands 3, and of course I know he is playable character in the second one. but I haven't actually played him a lot myself. So, whatever. But he was a fine character. It seemed like Krieg, the little I know his character from the games. Nox, I think was supposed to be, General Nox, which of course was a man in the games. The sex change added nothing. It was a very unimportant character, if you ask me. Didn't put any big impressions to me. Didn't get provoked by the gender switch, really, but whatever. And then there's Jack Black as Claptrap. I think he did a fine job. There are lots of other characters here. I'm not going to go through all of them. But the point is, the casting was fine. The style of the movie was fine. The main problem, if you could call it that, I don't want to be a negative Nancy like other people online. I wanted to be more reflective, like good or bad. Yeah, a little bit of both. Let's weigh it and talk about it, not just slam it to the ground and tell everybody it's awful. We don't need to use hyperbole all the time. So the point is that I think the main issue I had with the movie was that it felt less crazy than the games. I don't think it needed to be crank it up to 11 crazy. I think it was wise to make it more calm or ground-based, less extreme crazy. I think that could have worked, but the characters, I think, especially Tiny Tina, should have been more intense, more crazy. The psychos of this world, in the games they say a lot of crazy things and are really intense. They as well was less crazy. There are two types of psychos you see in this movie. The first ones are the regular ones from the games, and then they later make a difference to something called the Bloodshots, which I think are from the second one. But in these games, they are basically the same type of psychos, right? They are just different clans, but they make like make a little bit of these are special type of psychos, and those Bloodshots or whatever they were called, they are closer to the psychos of the games. If you ask me, I just don't understand why this movie was so low energy. Perhaps I should even call it soulless, without a voice identity. I just think it's so weird for so many reasons. First off, nei, Ernst. Nei! Nei! Si pappa! Nei! Nei? Okay, why was this movie so without an identity, without a clear voice, without even a imitated voice? I mean, you could just copy paste these games, right, and have that be the voice, or you could make it something new, but it felt voice and directionless, which again. Here's the thing that I'm trying to articulate is puzzling, is that it had great actors, right? And actresses. And the director, I'm not a huge fan of him. I've seen many of his movies. Here's the thing. I'm not a fan of him, but I do recognize his work as being something that is very him, if you ask me. A bit trashy, a bit extreme at times, yes. And again, the violence in these games have 18, whereas the movies, I guess PG-13. We have different age ratings in Norway, but it was age 12 and up. Why did Eli Roth make violent extreme movies prior and then get to be the director of a video game franchise that has a lot of violence, and for some reason they choose to make it
rated PG-13.
Why was Eli Roth then the director? You know? And again, not a huge fan of Eli Roth, but he makes edgy things, trashy things. This movie, I would not say it was trashy. It was really clean at times. The Stein was really clean. You know, everything was CGI, and CGI is a very clean style. You know, they try to make it texturized, they try to make it dirty, but we can see it's computers, it's clean. Lots of green screen. You can tell that this movie was basically a blue green screen, and then everything happens in front of a screen. I just don't get it. There were too many big names tied to this project for it to be this bland. Now, I'm sure people who do research will find out there's been producers behind the scene pulling threads, as is usually the case. And that's not for me. That it doesn't really change my experience. When you make a review, an analysis, you really don't need to know such matters. You just need to know how I as a viewer perceive the movie. You don't need to really know why it's like that. But I question it nonetheless. Why did all these big names, this director that I will repeat myself one more time, not a fan of, but I do recognize his style, as trashy and extreme, just make this not trashy, very clean, very non-violent at times, even the word violence, but you know, PG-13 violence. Not, I don't think you even saw blood. It's weird. But I need to wrap it up now, and I just want to finish by this one thought. That do I recommend this movie? And I would. That's the final point. Yes, I would recommend this movie, and here's why. It was not woke, or at least it was woke as it is in 2010, not 2024. It didn't lecture us about the environment or any of the LGBTQI things. It was a clean movie in that regard too. There was not a cringy moment where you felt, oh, here Eli Roth wants to tell me about gay rights or race relations or whatever. No, this was pure escapism. And that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
That's what we want. Now, we want it served in a better bowl, I guess. You want it to be a better, more entertaining movie. Fine. But you still need to recognize it when you're given something you want, but not in the best wrapping. You get it? You get what I'm trying to say? So that's why, although the movie isn't great, I would give it a 5 out of 10. It was okay. Great length for a bad movie. You know, it could have lasted 2.5 hours, which is the norm now for movies, I guess. Every movie has to last half a day. But the point is that it wasn't woke. And so if you want to say to Hollywood, you know, make movies that are not woke, then you probably should watch this movie just because it isn't all that woke. Okay? I think that's it. Bye-bye. Nei, Ernst? Nei? Nei! Si pappa. Nei! Nei?